bear with me. I want to apologize for not being able to start on time. We get votes on the floor, so that's the reason we're starting a little bit late. So for any inconvenience, we apologize. And I'd like to welcome everyone, my colleagues, and our distinguished witnesses to the Subcommittee on Asia and Pacific hearing this afternoon. Mr. Charlie Vega, our ranking member, unfortunately cannot be with us today, but we are pleased to have Representative Tulsi from Hawaii, and she'll be able to take the position of ranking member here this afternoon. We're also joined by Ms. Meng, who will be this afternoon, and I will ask consent that she be permitted to sit in with the subcommittee to be recognized to speak after all members of the subcommittee have been recognized without objection, so ordered. The Bangladesh story has been an impressive one. And it's a nation that has worked hard to lift itself from the war-torn ruins left behind by its bloody 1971 War of Independence from Pakistan. Over the last 20 years, there's been marked progress, especially on the economic front, as Bangladesh has grown into a crucial link between the dominant economies within the Indo-Pacific Economic Corridor. Strategically located between Asia's two powerhouses, India and China, and prominently situated within the Arc of Islam that extends from the Middle East into Southeast Asia, Bangladesh plays a key role in maintaining regional stability. As a moderate secular nation, Bangladesh has become an important security partner for the United States in the fight against terrorism and Islamic extremism in South Asia, as well as a collaborator on humanitarian assistance, peacekeeping operations, and maritime security. While there have been some noteworthy economic and social improvements, particularly over the past decade, Bangladesh is still a very poor country with an estimated 153 million people who live in poverty. And sadly, conditions for many working Bangladeshis remain dangerous and unhealthy. 6 months after the tragedy at Rana Plaza, in which 1,127 Bangladeshi workers were killed, changes have been slow to materialize. Corruption also remains a significant obstacle to Bangladesh's place in the world economy, and the government's sluggish efforts to combat it will only serve as further impediment to its economic growth. As Bangladesh approaches its national elections, which are likely to take place in early January, the country is in a state of political turmoil. In Bangladesh, politics, as usual, takes on a much harsher meaning than it does in many societies. As the major political parties ramp up their campaigns, operatives utilize strikes, riots, and blockades to destabilize the country and call attention to their grievances. When I visited Bangladesh about 2 weeks ago, we arrived at the onset of a 3-day general strike, essentially shutting down commerce called by the opposition Bangladesh National Party, BNP. During our stay, there were numerous reports of violence. While in Dhaka, I had the opportunity to meet with both the Prime Minister, Sheikh Hasina, of the Awami League, and the opposition leader, former Prime Minister, Khalida Zia, of BNP. During those meetings, I expressed my view that the national elections should be free and fair, transparent, and without violence. Both leaders were adamant in their positions. Sheikh Hasina insisted that provisions were in place to conduct a fair election. Zia maintained that a fair election could not be held without a caretaker government in place to ensure transparency. As of today, the two sides remain at odds, and it is still uncertain whether or not the opposition BNP will boycott the election. In meetings with the leaders, I stressed the need to curtail the growing violence, which can only bring about further instability, possibly leading to the expansion of extremist groups and creating a vacuum that could create broader security risks for the region. I also expressed my concerns about Bangladesh's International Crimes Tribunal, which was created by Sheikh Hasina in 2010 to investigate alleged crimes committed during the 1971 War for Independence, so about 42 years ago. Opposition leaders viewed the tribunal as a vehicle for the incumbent leadership to punish its enemies and strengthen its hand in the lead up to the elections. Since the tribunal began handing down death sentences in February, numerous outbreaks of violence have occurred. Critics of the tribunal, many of whom agree that trials should be held and that the guilty should be punished, maintain that international standards are not being applied. When I brought this up with the foreign minister, I was told, quote, we are actually creating new international standards, unquote. Based on some of the reports I heard about the conduct of the trials, that response was not very reassuring, particularly with the concerns expressed by U.S. Ambassador Stephen Rapp, who heads the State Department's Office of Global Criminal Justice and was the former prosecutor of the Sierra Leone and Rwanda trials. Ambassador Rapp, who has visited Bangladesh 3 times in an attempt to advise the ICT and the government on international standards, was largely ignored. Among the issues about which he expressed concerns were interrogation without cause, lengthy pretrial detentions, a lack of sufficient protections for witnesses and victims, and allowing prosecutors to call more witnesses than defendants were allowed to call. Hopefully, we can have some discussion about the court this afternoon on many other issues that we'll be discussing. So in a nutshell, I would say that Bangladesh has much going for it and much standing in the way of its continuing progress. I look forward to hearing from our excellent panel of witnesses here this afternoon and hoping to address some of the issues in greater detail. And I would now like to call out of order the gentleman from California, who is the ranking member of the PMT committee, Brad Sherman from California, to make a statement.
I regret my wife isn't here. She spent a year working in Bangladesh with BRAC, the Bangladesh Rural Advancement Committee. I regret I can't spend time here, but I've got to go to our subcommittee to deal with Syria. I look forward to reading the transcript, and I hope the witnesses will focus on at least the 2 points. One of those is the rights of Hindus in Bangladesh. I'm glad to see that the Vested Property Act, which allowed the confiscation of property from a large number of Hindus, I believe has been repealed, but I'm concerned that successive administrations have not taken steps to return the land expropriated from Hindus under the law, and I'm concerned with the other human rights abuses I hear visit on religious minorities in Bangladesh, and that's why so many of us have co-sponsored the bill to establish a separate office in the State Department to deal with religious minorities in the Middle East and South Asia. Second, I'm concerned about Muhammad Yunus and the Grameen Bank, which of course won the Nobel Prize for their outstanding work in development. The government has moved toward, in effect, taking it over, pushing Yunus out as managing director, and I hope the witnesses will address that issue. I look forward to reading your comments. Thank you.
Thank you, John. And I'd now like to recognize the acting ranking member today, Ms. Gabbard, for 5 minutes to make a opening statement.
I appreciate your holding this very important hearing today, and I'd like to also thank our witnesses for joining us and everyone who took the time to come to discuss these important issues that we all care very much about. There's no question, as the name and focus of this hearing suggests, Bangladesh is currently in a state of turmoil. As the country heads towards elections early next year, there are many concerns about the stability of the country, which has come to share significant ties with the U.S. on so many fronts, whether it be counterterrorism or trade or mitigation of natural disasters. As our relationship continues to grow, part of this growing friendship creates the opportunity for us to have candid conversations whenever there are concerns that arise, which we will have today. I'm particularly concerned over issues, as Mr. Sherman mentioned, regarding religious freedom and specifically over attacks on the minority Hindu community remaining in Bangladesh today. I think it's unfortunate that sometimes perpetrators of crimes against this community go unpunished, and it's up to the government of Bangladesh to act authoritatively against those who incite and commit violence against anyone and protect the rights of all minorities. I look forward to this subcommittee, the leadership of our chairman, as well as another subcommittee for the Foreign Affairs Committee as a whole, in taking up this issue in particular. Additionally, the languishing labor situation in this country is troublesome. Since the Rana Plaza tragedy in April, where over 1,100 garment workers were killed and over 2,500 injured, there was a renewed focus on the labor sector by the government and the private sector. Both do carry a responsibility to ensure that worker rights and safety standards are being met in that country. Changes seem to be slow and coming. On November 18th, the Wall Street Journal reported that Walmart found still more than 15% of the factories in its initial round of safety inspections in Bangladesh failed to safety audits. The U.S. continues to be concerned about the political deadlock between the two major political parties, in particular around the upcoming elections and the increase in violence that this deadlock creates. Our Assistant Secretary for South and Central Asia, Nisha Biswal, just returned from Bangladesh and reiterated the U.S.'s position that the opposing parties must come to an agreement over the elections to ensure that there is prevention of any further violence. We hope that both parties engage directly in a constructive dialogue in order to create this environment for free, fair, and credible elections to occur. I think that this will be a critical measure as we look at U.S.-Bangladesh relations moving forward. There are areas where Bangladesh has seen improvement. The economy has grown 6% per year over the last 2 decades despite a range of challenges. The poverty rate has dropped from 40% to 31.5% over just the last 5 years, lifting millions out of poverty. It's important for us to take note of these metrics and to see how we can continue to grow in this area. I think Bangladesh's long-term prospects are strong, primarily because of the strength of its human capital. The population is young, hardworking, and the people as a whole are resilient. Overcoming these areas of concern to expand growth is key to ensuring the success of Bangladesh. I look forward to our discussion today to see how we can continue to engage, to address some of the human rights concerns, the concerns around religious freedom and persecution, and make sure that all people are protected as this great country grows, both economically and past political instability. Thank you again, Mr. Chairman, for your time.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I'd like to now introduce our distinguished panel here this afternoon, and I'll begin with Dr. Ali Arias, who is a public policy scholar at the Woodrow Wilson Center here in Washington. He is currently on sabbatical leave from Illinois State University, where he is the chair of the Department of Politics and Government. Previously, Dr. Riaz taught at the University of Bangladesh, England, and the University of South Carolina. He has additionally worked as a broadcast journalist for the BBC World Service in London and has a long list of publications focused on South Asia politics. We welcome you here this afternoon, Doctor. I'd also like to introduce Major General Munir-uz-Zaman, who is currently president of the Bangladesh Institute of Peace and Security Studies, as well as the current chairman of the Global Military Advisory Council on Climate Change. He is a former career military officer who served 37 years active duty and had the distinction of serving as the military secretary to the President of Bangladesh. And General Munir is a graduate of the Malaysian Armed Forces Staff College, National Defense College, National University of Bangladesh, and the United States Naval War College. He led the Bangladesh Country Convention to the UN Transitional Authority in Cambodia and led the past election UN mission in Cambodia to monitor the political and security situation in that country. He sits on the board of governors of Council for Asian Transnational Threat Research and is a frequent speaker on international security and policy issues. We thank you, General, for being here this afternoon. Our final witness will be John Sifton, who is the Asia Advocacy Director at Human Rights Watch, where he works primarily on South and Southeast Asia. He previously served as the director of One World Research, a public interest research and investigation firm. Prior to that, he spent 6 years as a researcher in the Asia Division at Human Rights Watch. Mr. Sifton also worked for the International Rescue Committee on Afghanistan and Pakistan issues, and at a refugee advocacy organization in Albania and Kosovo. He holds a law degree from New York University and a bachelor's degree from St. John's College in Annapolis. So we welcome you here, Mr. Sifton. This afternoon, we'll be going by what we call the 5-minute rule. Each of you will have 5 minutes. A yellow light will come on when you have 1 minute left. If you could try to wrap up by the time the red light comes on, we'll give you a little leeway, but we'd ask that you wrap up as close as possible once the red light comes on. We'll hold the same rules here.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I want to thank you for holding this hearing. Unfortunately, I have another commitment. I'd ask you now to send the mail and statement in the record.
Without objection, if you would like to make a brief opening statement, I would allow.
I'm glad to hold this hearing. I think Bangladesh is a very important nation, obviously, in Southeast Asia, and with a lot of challenges, but also an enormous promise. So I applaud you and the ranking member for exploring those issues and hopefully working through our bilateral relationship to a more fruitful.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Okay, Dr. Rios, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you.
If you each would hit the button when you're request 5 minutes, Michael, start operating. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Sharot, the members of the committee. Thank you for inviting me to discuss the political situation in Bangladesh. I have submitted a written testimony which is as my statement, and I will summarize some of the points that I have mentioned in my written statement. As we all know, Bangladeshi politics is once again at the crossroads. In recent months, the situation has taken a violent turn as the opposition organized several general strikes which led to death and destruction and has threatened more in the coming days. The human cost of the violence is rising rapidly. The government, on the other hand, has used excessive force to quell the opposition and resorted to the prosecution of the opposition leaders. The immediate reason for the current political impasse can be traced back to the 15th Amendment of the Constitution, which removed the caretaker government, which ensured 3 fair elections since 1996. The point of contention is whether the election time government should be comprised political leaders or non-partisan individuals. The opposition alliance, led by the BNP, insists that the government, manned by politicians, will influence the election results in favor of the incumbent. The fundamental reasons for the introduction of the caretaker government in 1996 were the absence of trust among the political parties and of strong institutions that can be trusted to hold an acceptable election. While current incumbent and the opposition parties have been in power since 1991, neither has tried to create necessary institutions, nor has the climate of mistrust changed. Public opinion polls in the removal of the system show an overwhelming support for a neutral caretaker government during the elections. And the second point is the importance of an inclusive election. The upcoming election is important at both domestic and regional levels, with significance for the US-Bangladesh relationship. Despite transitioning the military rule in 1991, Bangladesh has not produced an inclusive, it has both inclusive election, but it introduced a very significant democratic institution. One of the key issues is the International Crime Tribunal that you have mentioned. These trials of those who perpetrated genocide and committed crimes against humanity during the War of Independence in 1971. Trying the war criminal was an election promise of the Awami League. Despite some reservations about the trial process, opinion polls have shown that the majority of Bangladeshi citizens support the work of the ICT. Whether it plays a role in the upcoming election or not, in my opinion, the trial of those who committed crimes against humanity in 1971 should continue. This was long overdue. Without dealing with the painful past and delivering justice, the nation won't be able to move forward. What are the future trajectories? We see 3 options at this point, 3 possible scenarios. One is a routine election participated by all parties. However, given the uncompromising positions of the ruling and the opposition party, it is an unlikely scenario at this moment. Accommodation of some of the demands of the opposition, perhaps a cabinet not headed by the incumbent PM, is the way out within the current constitutional provider. Opposition should be ready to make compromises. Number 2, an election boycotted by the opposition. This scenario is close to what happened in February 1996, when the BNP unilaterally arranged a sham election. Despite apparent similarities between 1996 and 2013, the situation on the ground is different this time around. Few allies of the ruling party will join the election. The legitimacy of such an election is an open question. Such elections do not produce a durable parliament, nor bring political stability. Third option is the referral of the election. It can be done within the purview of the current constitution or through extra constitutional steps to be ratified post facto parliament. One of the articles of the Bangladesh constitution stipulates that election will be held within 90 days after the dissolution of the parliament. Therefore, if parliament is dissolved, the window of time can be used to formulate a solution through mediation between the political parties. Since caretaker government issue was never placed before the public for approval, one way out could be a referendum on the issue during the extended period. A general election can follow based on the election results of the referendum. This will give all parties a sense of victory. Finally, the role of the international community. The United States and the international community can take the following steps that I would recommend. Number one, instead of focusing on elections every 5 years as tension escalates, the United States should emphasize on the quality of democracy. Concrete action steps should be laid out to be followed by the political party. For adherence to each step, the country should be rewarded with benefits that help the entire population or the most productive sectors of the country. For example, restoring the GSP, easing the tariff barriers for the productive sectors, especially developing countries. Number two, building an institution for sustainable and quality democracy, such as strong election commission, should be the key focus of the international community, and commitment for long-term engagements is necessary. Number three, the United States should make clear statements in regard to the post-election tolerance, including safeguarding the weaker section of the society, particularly religious minorities, and the results of those fallout. Number four, encourage all parties to agree on containing religious extremism. Number five, the international community should neither franchise its responsibilities to regional powers, nor should the regional powers be excluded from this international effort. In particular, India's varied security concerns must be addressed. Institutional structures should be created to ensure that domestic political environment in Bangladesh does not threaten its neighbor or the regional security. The present political crisis in Bangladesh can be turned into an opportunity to build a stable, democratic, prosperous country. Economic and social achievements of recent decades show that citizens are capable of taking steps in the right direction. It is time for Bangladeshi political leaders to take the right decisions, that is, to hold an inclusive election, agree on post-election tolerant behavior, rein in extremism, commit to address the issue of war crimes judiciously, and commit to regional peace. And it is time for the international community to help them in this regard. Thank you for this opportunity to testify. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much. General, you recognize 5 minutes.
Mr. Chairman and honourable member, thank you again for inviting us to testify before this committee. What I would like to start by saying that I shall cover some of the salient points of the written testimony that I've given and address the main issues of the questions that are posed to me. It is pertinent to say that a combination of multiple forces of political violence, weak governance, corruption, poverty, and rising economic delinquency is very rapidly harming the very core of the Bangladeshi state and turning it into a fragile state. The lack of political trust between the two political parties, and particularly between the two leaders of the parties, has made the democratic process in the country dysfunctional. The current state of political impasse comes with a very resolution that was passed and the amendment that was passed in the Parliament of the 15th Amendment, which people perceive was done by the government with ulterior motives. The resultant protest by the opposition and its allies, including the Jamaat-e-Islami, has brought widespread violence on the street and has resulted in over 200 deaths in the last few months and injured many more. Experience of Bangladesh's history of elections shows that incumbent government has the capacity and the means to manipulate and rig the election. Therefore, a wide majority of the people want a neutral, caretaker government to hold the elections, and that is the only way out of the current political impasse in the country. The country has had weak governance for many years, and the state of law and order was poor, and crime was on the rise. There were political force disappearances over the last few years. Industrial labor standards were very appalling, resulting in Rana Plaza incidents with impunity. We also saw the squeezing of the space of civil society, and the role of civil society has been curbed over the last few years, and the freedom of press and expression is under threat as journalists are in jail for expressing their opinions. TV channels and newspapers have been closed, and the culture of winner-take-all approach has made the government's position very rigid. There is also widespread corruption in the country, and prevalent chronic capitalism persists. It is also important to say that the property reduction that has taken place over the last few years has also been hit by the government's stance against the Grameen Bank and particularly against Professor Yunus. I would like to say that there is a rising tendency of Islamic militantism in Bangladesh, and that is going to hit at the very core of Bangladesh's stand as a secular and a moderate state. The reasons for this rise is due to multiple forces of internal impacts and external impacts. But the point that I would like to very much emphasize here before this committee is that the current state of political intolerance by the government towards its opposition and the current state of the political violence that persists in the country, if this continues, the country will soon enter a phase of instability, and any instability in Bangladesh will create the ground for militant parties and organizations to thrive and expand their scope of operation within the country. We also see that any militant operations in Bangladesh will have impacts on the regional security, particularly because of the 2014 withdrawal of the US forces from Afghanistan, when the security of the region will become very fragile. I would also like to say that in this state of fragility, the relationship between the United States and Bangladesh needs to be observed very carefully. A question was also posed, what needs to happen for a stable, secure, and accountable government in Bangladesh? What I would like to say that we first need a change of the political culture. We need important government organizations to be reformed, including the judiciary, which has to be free and accountable. We need enforcement to make election commission, anti-corruption commission, and other bodies more functional. There has to be a definite role of the civil society in expanding the space and making the government accountable. The system of impunity by government and its cronies has to stop so that the rule of law can be established. And we need a free and a robust media, and media should not be hampered by the government. We also need political forces on issues of state, and we need national policies, not personal and private policies. We need an educated population to enforce that their governments are held accountable. A very interesting question was also posed to me, saying that in this current state of the impasse and the political violence that persists in the country, will it reach the army coming into play again in a military coup? My answer to this question, the military does not have a role in solving political problems in a democratic country. And having seen the experience of 2007, I also feel that the military does not also have the appetite for that. But the fact remains that the military remains the only credible and acceptable institution in the country, in spite of the politicization of all state institutions by the current government. The military has remained apolitical, and therefore the military should play the role that is in the best interest of the country, but I presume that if the violence persists, the military at a time may be sucked into the process, but that is not something that we should welcome. I once again say that, thank you for the hearing, and I hope that our international friends and partners continue to engage Bangladesh so that Bangladesh doesn't slip into a state of violence and becomes a fragile and fake state. Thank you.
Thank you, General. Mr. Tiffin, you recognized 5 minutes.
Thank you for inviting me to testify today. It's a very well-timed hearing. The other witnesses have already discussed Bangladesh's dire political situation and the risks it presents. I think we focus on the specific human rights issues that the current government has brought to bear and describe in more detail exactly how they will be affected by the events of the hour. So let me first discuss the key human rights issues in play in this current political impasse. The parameters of the standoff are well documented. The ruling party, the Awami League, has refused to be in these demands for a caretaker government. As a result, as the other witnesses have already said, there's a very real possibility that the PNP and most of its political allies will boycott the election, and thus the subsequent parliament and the government that those elections would create. So let's discuss what that will lead to. With that instability will come political volatility. In boycotting before and after the elections, the PNP and its allies will presumably hold protests, cartels, shutting down transit and and economic activity in key urban areas. And in response, state security forces will use force of varying types. Some of it responsive, some of it proactive. And perhaps none of this would be too worrisome in the abstract, were it not for the fact that cartels and security forces' responses to them are almost always accompanied by violence, mob attacks by political factions, and excessive use of force as state actors. And some of the worst violence so far this year occurred between gangs and rival party activists, both who belong to DNP and Juma. None of whose leaders, it should be noted today, have done much to restrain their supporters during that violence. Many people are likely to be injured in future political violence that will accompany that, and likely a large number of people will be killed. Many people will also be detained. And I want to emphasize that this political violence is a legal violence. Every government is entitled, even obligated, to use police powers to maintain order, even the use of force, so long as it's proportional and not excessive. The problem is that in Bangladesh, security forces usually don't exercise force in a measured and proportional way. Human Rights Watch has documented Bangladesh's security forces using excessive force in responding to street protests for years, including major violence this year. For instance, the violence in early May killed approximately 50 people. By our estimates, security forces have killed almost 150 people and injured at least 2,000 since February this year. And while large numbers of protesters have been arrested, the Bangladeshi authorities haven't held anybody accountable among the security forces for excessive force. So this political instability is going to make matters worse. And if the best predictor of future behavior is past behavior, we have very serious cause for concern. But the violence is not the only reason. Heightened political volatility in coming weeks and months is going to lead to other kinds of abuses of civil and political rights. Crackdowns on freedom of speech, harassment of journalists, activity, civil society. This is already underway. The committee is aware, of course, that a key human rights group in Bangladesh, Rayburn, had several members jailed this year. One remains in custody. The harassment of Rayburn continues. I went to Raybur's offices last week in Dhaka during a passing visit to Bangladesh, and there were two men on each corner of the street who provoked the man I took to be plainclothes police officers. Their overt surveillance was frankly pathetic and thuggish. If nothing else comes of this hearing, we can at least call on Bangladesh's government to end this shameful harassment of civil society. The committee is also aware that overbroad and vague laws, such as the Information Communication Technology Act, are being used to target groups simply for acts of free speech. This act has been used not only against Vodacom, but against journalists and against bloggers in recent months. The breakdown of the political order in Bangladesh is also going to have knock-off effects on other human rights issues beyond the political realm. There are many other human rights issues in Bangladesh, as the committee is aware. Women's rights issues, which Human Rights Watch has reported on. There's labor rights issues, the issue of the day, and international justice issues connected to the tribunal. Human Rights Watch has supported and continues to support efforts to hold perpetrators responsible for the terrible crimes of the 1971 conflict. But as the chairman has made clear already, that tribunal has been marred by deficiencies which have undermined the integrity of its processes. And since this process includes the death penalty, there's good reason for human rights groups such as ours to be quite concerned. So all of these important human rights issues will be impacted by the possible breakdown of the political order in Bangladesh. The consequences are clear. So what can be done to address all of this? Well, the United States and other governments have already stated their concerns. The Secretary of State Kerry, writing to Sheikh Hasina and the leaders of the opposition, to your visit 2 weeks ago to Assistant Secretary Nisha Dilawasi's visit just this past weekend. The message has been delivered, but it will help for Congress to further reinforce that message and back up those concerns with warnings about the consequences to Bangladesh if this political crisis spins out of control. Everything Bangladesh wants and needs today, tariff reductions, goodwill in Europe to maintain low tariffs there, continued use of
Bangladesh military forces from UN peacekeeping, which is a key source of revenue to the military, involvement in regional security and strategic moves. All of this will be put at risk if Bangladesh suffers a political implosion. And on some level, Bangladesh's leaders already know this, but it always helps remind them. And I hope that this hearing does that today. Thank you for allowing me to testify.
Thank you very much, Mr. Stitt. Now, members of the panel up here will have 5 minutes to ask questions of the witnesses. And I'll begin myself. It's too soon to say exactly how the elections will unfold in January. History has shown virtually anything is possible under Bangladeshi politics. However, we know that opposition leader Zia met with Bangladesh's Sheikh Hasina two days ago, I believe, in which apparently some encouraging words came out, maybe a step forward. But at the same time, they split without an agreement, and Zia still demands that Prime Minister Hasina step down from office and a caretaker government be put in place to oversee the national elections. Mr. Stitt, you kind of already gave your analysis of what might happen. I'd be interested to see what Dr. Rios and Major Arbuin was on. How do you think, what is the most likely scenario, in your opinion, to play out here? If you had to, what do you think is the most likely?
Thank you.
And if you push your mind. Thank you.
Lately, the meeting between the opposition leader and the president has a very limited constitutional power. And in that case, how much he would be able to intervene in this kind of situation is not very clear. Previous situations in the history tell that it is not. But he has a moral power. There is no doubt in my mind that the president does carry some moral power. He wants to. It's a very limited constitutional law. And going forward, in terms of these 3 scenarios that I mentioned, I am not very much optimistic about an inclusive